My name is Alex, and for years I believed family meant loyalty, understanding, and mutual support. That belief was my foundation, a silent vow I took, always putting my loved ones first, even when it meant sacrificing my own happiness. But looking back now, I see how blind I was, how deeply I misjudged those closest to me. It all began subtly, like a crack in a window, hardly noticeable at first. My brother Daniel had always been the golden child, charming, ambitious, the one everyone praised at family dinners. I, on the other hand, was the quieter one, the dependable sibling who picked up the pieces when others dropped them. I had a steady career, a modest home, and a heart that still held hope for those I called family. The first real fracture came when my father fell ill. It was sudden, a heart attack that left him weak and bedridden for months. My mother, overwhelmed, leaned heavily on me, expecting me to handle the practicalities, hospital bills, home care, arranging appointments. It was exhausting, but I did it without hesitation, convinced it was simply what family did. Daniel, however, remained a distant figure through those months, showing up occasionally with grand gestures, expensive flowers, brief visits, and loud declarations of support, but never staying long enough to share the burden. I convinced myself that he was just busy, caught up in his high-flying career, too stressed to focus on anything beyond his next big deal. As the months dragged on, my savings began to dwindle. Between medical bills and missed work hours, the financial strain became suffocating. I reached out to Daniel one evening, hoping for a bit of support, or at least a shared responsibility. He picked up after the third ring, his voice brisk and slightly irritated. "Alex, I'm in the middle of a deal. Can we make this quick?" I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "Hey, I just wanted to talk about Dad's expenses. It's getting a bit much for me alone. I was wondering if you could chip in a bit more, maybe cover some of the upcoming therapy costs." There was a pause, the kind that makes your heart sink before a single word is spoken. "Look, Alex," he finally said, his tone sharp. "I have my own expenses. You know how it is. Investments, the house, the car. It all adds up. I'm doing my part by being there when I can. You handle the bills, you're good at that sort of thing. Besides, it's not like Dad has much longer. We just need to hang in there for a while." His words hit like a slap, the casual cruelty wrapped in a thin veneer of practicality. For the first time, I felt the edges of a betrayal I hadn't fully acknowledged. He wasn't just absent, he was taking me for granted, assuming I'd shoulder the burden without question, without complaint. Still, I swallowed my frustration, choosing to believe in the family bond that had always guided me. I reassured myself that Daniel was just under pressure, that he would step up when it truly mattered. But deep down, a seed of doubt had been planted, and it would only grow as the months wore on. The breaking point came one rainy evening months later. I had just returned from another exhausting hospital visit, my clothes damp, my mind heavy with worry. I dropped my keys on the kitchen counter, the sharp clink echoing in the empty house, and noticed the blinking light on my answering machine. It was Daniel. "Hey, Alex, just thought you should know I talked to Mom today. She's been a bit upset lately, says you've been acting distant, not calling enough. You should really make more of an effort. Anyway, take care." I stared at the machine, the metallic voice cutting into the silence of my home. The audacity, the sheer nerve of it left me breathless. Here I was, struggling to keep everything together, while he played the concerned son from a distance, casting doubt on my commitment. For the first time in years, I felt a simmering anger, a deep, consuming frustration that left my hands trembling. I had been patient, understanding the steady rock in a turbulent sea, but this was too much. As I sank into the kitchen chair, the harsh hum of the refrigerator, the only sound in the house, I realized that my blind loyalty had made me a fool. I had given so much, sacrificed so often, yet the people I thought would stand beside me had merely watched from the sidelines, content to let me carry the weight alone. I took a deep breath, feeling a cold resolve harden within me. This would not be my role any longer. I would not be the forgotten one, the invisible backbone of a family that took my strength for granted. And in that moment, I decided if they wanted a silent, dependable Alex, they were about to learn what it truly meant to take me for granted. The days after that voicemail felt heavier, like the air itself had thickened, pressing down on me as I moved through each obligation. My father's condition stabilized, but the financial strain only grew. Medical bills, therapy sessions, home care, it all piled up, the numbers on my bank statement sinking faster than I cared to admit. And Daniel. He remained a ghost in our father's life, his occasional visits more about optics than genuine care. He would show up with his designer suits, polished shoes, and that easy practice smile, patting Dad on the shoulder like a politician courting votes. Mum, of course, fawned over him, her eyes brightening whenever he walked through the door, as if his mere presence could cure everything. I tried to ignore the growing resentment, focusing on the small moments of connection with Dad. The shared quiet over cups of tea, the rare soft smiles that broke through his fatigue. But the strain was real, a constant gnawing ache in my chest. One afternoon, I stopped by the family home to drop off some groceries and found Mom sitting in the living room, her brow furrowed as she flipped through a stack of bills. I hesitated in the doorway, the bags weighing down my arms. "Hey, Mom, need some help?" I set the bags on the kitchen counter, forcing a smile as I walked over. She glanced up, her eyes tired, the lines on her face deeper than I remembered. "Oh, Alex, it's just these medical bills. They keep coming and it's overwhelming. I thought Daniel was going to handle some of this, but..." Her voice trailed off, a shadow passing over her expression. I felt my jaw tighten. "I've been covering most of it, Mom. Daniel said he'd chip in, but I haven't seen much from him." Her eyes flicked back to the papers in her lap, a flicker of discomfort crossing her face. "Well, he has a lot on his plate. You know how demanding his work is. But you're always so responsible. I just thought you'd handle it." The words stung, a reminder of the roles we had been forced into. Me, the dependable one, the steady hand in the storm, and Daniel, the prodigal son who could do no wrong. I felt my grip on the chair tighten, the cool wood pressing into my palms. "I can't do this alone forever, Mum," I said, my voice quieter, almost pleading. "It's not just the money, it's the time, the energy. I'm running myself into the ground, trying to keep everything together." She sighed, setting the bills aside and reaching for my hand. "I know, dear. But family comes first. We have to stick together, no matter how hard it gets. Daniel will come around. He just needs time." Time. I bit back the bitter retort that threatened to spill out. How much more time did he need? How many more months would I be expected to carry this load while he reaped the benefits of being the good son? Before I could respond, the front door creaked open, and Daniel strode in his polished shoes clicking against the hardwood floor. He paused in the doorway, his sharp eyes taking in the scene. The scattered bills, my tense posture, Mom's worried frown. "Hey, family," he said, spreading his arms in a grand, almost theatrical gesture. "What's with the long faces?" Mum's expression immediately brightened, her earlier exhaustion slipping away like a discarded coat. "Oh, Daniel, you're here. Come sit. Alex and I were just talking about your father's bills." He crossed the room, leaning down to kiss her cheek, before taking the seat across from me, his movements smooth and practiced. "Ah, yes, the bills. I've been meaning to talk to you about that, Alex." I felt my stomach tighten, a cold wave of dread washing over me. I forced a calm expression, meeting his gaze. "Yeah, what's on your mind?" Daniel leaned back, folding his arms across his chest, his smile a touch too sharp. "I've been thinking. Maybe it's time we considered selling the family home. It's a lot of work to maintain, and with Dad's health, well, it might be better for everyone." The casual suggestion hit me like a physical blow. The air in the room, suddenly, too thin. Sell the house. The place where we had grown up, where Dad had built his life, his memories, his legacy. Mom's eyes widened, her hands fluttering to her chest. "Oh, Daniel, I don't know if I could." "This is our home. Your father, he wouldn't want that." Daniel's smile tightened, a hint of impatience flashing in his eyes. "I'm just saying it's something to consider. We could use the money to cover Dad's care, pay off some debts, maybe even set you up in a smaller place that's easier to manage." I felt a cold anger rising in my chest, my pulse thudding loudly in my ears. He was talking about our family's history like a business deal, a cold transaction that would strip away the last remnants of our father's life. "I don't think that's the right move, Daniel," I said, my voice low but firm. "Dad worked his whole life for this place. It's more than just bricks and mortar. It's his legacy." Daniel's jaw tightened, his smile slipping for just a moment before he forced it back into place. Of course. Just something to keep in mind. I'm just trying to be practical here." Practical. The word hung in the air like a bitter aftertaste. I felt the room closing in around me, the weight of unspoken words pressing down on my shoulders. I stood abruptly, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. I should go. I've got some work to finish up. I didn't wait for their responses as I walked back to the kitchen, grabbed my jacket, and stepped out into the cool evening air. The door clicked shut behind me, the sound sharp and final like a judge's gavel. As I walked down the driveway, the leaves crunching beneath my feet, I felt the slow burn of betrayal solidifying in my chest. I had given everything for this family, and yet to them I was still just a convenient piece in their carefully curated lives. It was time to start thinking about myself for once. The days that followed felt like walking through a dense fog, each step weighed down by the realization that my family, the people I had sacrificed so much for, saw me as little more than a convenient crutch. I threw myself into my work, trying to drown out the bitter echoes of Daniel's words, but the resentment simmered just beneath the surface, like a pot on the verge of boiling over. One evening, as I sat at my desk, the soft glow of my laptop casting long shadows across the room, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. It was Mom. I hesitated for a moment, my thumb hovering over the accept button before finally answering. "Hey, Mom." "Alex, dear." She began, her voice warm, but tinged with that familiar edge of expectation. "I was just talking to Daniel, and he mentioned you seemed a bit tense the other day. I know this is all a lot to handle, but we need to stay strong for your father." I closed my eyes, forcing a deep breath. "Yeah, I know, it's just a lot, balancing Dad's care work and everything else." There was a brief, uncomfortable silence before she continued, her tone softening. "I understand, sweetheart. But I was thinking, maybe you could take a little time off work, focus on helping your father full-time for a while. It would be good for him, and you've always been the one he relies on." I felt my jaw clench, my pulse quickening. Time off work. She made it sound so simple, as if I could just set aside my entire life without consequence, as if my financial stability and career didn't matter as much as Daniel's. "Mom, I can't just drop everything," I replied, my voice sharper than I intended. "I have bills to pay, a career to maintain. I'm already doing everything I can." She sighed, a sound tinged with disappointment. "I know, Alex, but family comes first. Daniel is doing his part too. He's just busy. You know how demanding his work is. Busy." The word stung, a cruel understatement for his convenient absences and selective involvement. I felt the familiar anger bubbling up, tightening my grip on the phone. "Right," I said, forcing the words through gritted teeth. "Busy." I could almost hear her shifting uncomfortably on the other end, sensing the tension, but choosing to ignore it as she always did. "Well, Just think about it, dear. Your father needs you. We all do. Before I could muster a response, she hung up, leaving the line buzzing in my ear. I dropped the phone onto my desk, my chest heaving with the effort to keep my composure. For the first time, I felt the sharp edge of resentment cutting through the fog of obligation. I had given up so much for this family, and yet in their eyes I was still just the reliable fallback, the steady hand that kept their lives running smoothly while they pursued their own ambitions. A few days later, I received a text from Daniel, a brief, businesslike message that made my stomach twist. Daniel, hey, can we meet for coffee? Need to discuss something important. Tomorrow at 10. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply button. My first instinct was to ignore it, to let him stew in the silence for once, but curiosity and a lingering sense of familial duty won out. Me sure. See you then. The next morning, I found myself sitting across from Daniel in a sleek, modern cafe, the kind he favoured. All glass walls, polished metal, and overpriced espresso. He arrived 10 minutes late, his phone still in hand, fingers flicking through emails as he slid into the chair opposite me. "Hey, thanks for meeting me," he said, flashing that practiced camera-ready smile. I forced a tight nod, wrapping my hands around my coffee cup as if it might anchor me in place. "Yeah, what's up?" He leaned back, crossing his legs with a casual confidence that made my teeth clench. "So I've been thinking about the house again. With Dad's condition, it really doesn't make sense to hold on to it. It's a financial drain, and honestly, it's not fair to keep Mum tied to a place she can't maintain on her own." I felt the familiar heat rise in my chest, my fingers tightening around the warm ceramic. "We've been over this, Daniel. Selling the house isn't the answer. It's Dad's legacy, his life's work. You can't just sweep that away because it's inconvenient." His jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing slightly, the mask slipping for just a moment. "I get that, Alex. I do. But we have to be practical. It's not just about sentiment. It's about survival. And frankly, you're the one who's always been good with numbers. You should see that." The words hit like a slap, the condescension in his tone setting my nerves alight. I leaned forward, my pulse thrumming in my ears. "You mean the survival of your investments, your lifestyle, because from where I'm sitting, it seems like you're more interested in cashing out than actually supporting this family." His eyes flashed with irritation, the carefully crafted facade cracking just enough to reveal the cold, calculating edge beneath. "That's not fair, Alex. I'm doing what I can. But I can't keep pouring money into a sinking ship." I felt my heart rate spike, the blood pounding in my temples. I had spent years bending over backwards for this family, sacrificing my time, my finances, my peace of mind, and now he wanted to strip away the one thing that still connected us to our father's memory. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to unclench my fists. "I'm not selling the house, Daniel. If you want to walk away, fine, but don't expect me to clean up your mess." For a moment his face hardened, the mask slipping completely, revealing the cold, self-interested man beneath. But then just as quickly the smile returned, his posture relaxing, as he leaned back, arms draped casually over the back of his chair. "All right," he said, his voice cool and measured. "Have it your way, but don't say I didn't warn you when things get worse." With that he stood, dropped a few bills on the table without a second glance, and walked out the glass door swinging shut behind him. I sat there for a long moment, the cool ceramic of the coffee cup pressing into my palms, my heart pounding in my chest. I had always known there was a distance between us, a fundamental divide in how we viewed the world. But this was a betrayal I hadn't fully prepared for. As I watched his sleek black car pull away from the curb, a strange calm settled over me, the first hints of a cold, calculated resolve forming in the back of my mind. If Daniel wanted a fight, he was about to get one. The days that followed my tense meeting with Daniel felt strangely lighter, as if the quiet rage simmering in my chest had finally burned away the last remnants of self-doubt. I had spent too long playing the peacemaker, the dutiful sibling, the one who silently bore the burdens others conveniently ignored. But that was over now. It was a late Thursday evening when the real storm hit. I had just returned from another exhausting day at the hospital, my father's frail hand still lingering in my mind, the way his eyes had flickered with a hint of recognition when I adjusted his blanket. The house was dark, the only light coming from the faint glow of the street lamps filtering through the living room curtains. I dropped my keys on the side table and reached for the stack of mail that had accumulated over the past week. Bill's insurance notices, a few impersonal flyers, and one thick envelope with Daniel's name in the return address. I frowned, flipping it over in my hands. It felt heavier than normal, the kind of envelope that carried more than just a casual update. I tore it open, my pulse quickening as I unfolded the neatly typed pages within. Notice of family property assessment. I scanned the first few lines, my eyes catching on phrases like market valuation, potential, liquidation, and equity assessment. My hands began to shake, the words blurring together as the full weight of the document hit me. Daniel wasn't just talking about selling the house. He had already taken the first steps, without so much as a conversation, without even the courtesy of a phone call. My mind raced, the betrayal sharper than I had anticipated. He had gone behind my back, moving forward with his plans to liquidate the only piece of our father's legacy that still remained, the house that had been our family's anchor for decades. I felt the slow creeping burn of anger spreading through my chest, my fingers tightening around the crisp edges of the paper. This was no longer just a disagreement. This was an outright attack, a calculated move to strip away the last remnants of our family's history for his own financial gain. I dropped the letter onto the kitchen counter, my mind already churning through the implications. If he was this far along, it meant he had likely already started lining up buyers, whispering sweet promises to realtors about the prime location and potential profits. For a moment I considered calling him, confronting him directly, letting the full force of my fury explode through the phone line. But as I stood there, the cool air from the open window brushing against my skin, I realized that a simple outburst wouldn't be enough. This required a different approach, something quieter, more calculated, something that would make him regret underestimating me. I spent the next few days in a quiet frenzy, digging through old files, searching for anything that might give me an edge. I pulled up bank statements, scanned legal documents, and pored over the fine print of our parents' estate planning. I barely ate my mind, too focused, too sharp, to waste time on anything as trivial as hunger. Then, late one night, as the rain pattered softly against the windows, I found it. A single line in my father's original will, buried among the dense paragraphs of legal jargon. The family home shall not be sold or transferred without the unanimous consent of all direct descendants. I felt my breath catch the weight of the discovery sinking into my bones. It was a small detail easily overlooked, but it was enough. A thin but unbreakable chain linking me to the fate of our family home, a line that even Daniel, with all his polished charm and financial acumen, couldn't cross without my agreement. I sat back in my chair, the leather creaking softly beneath me, a slow, triumphant smile spreading across my face. He thought he could sideline me, sweep me aside like an inconvenient footnote in his carefully curated life, but he had made a critical error. He had underestimated just how deeply I was embedded in the foundation of this family. The next morning I made a series of calls to my father's old lawyer, to a financial advisor, and finally to a real estate appraiser. I wanted the full picture, every detail, every crack in the facade that Daniel had so carefully constructed. By the end of the week, I had a thick folder of documents, a meticulously organized arsenal of financial reports, legal clauses, and property valuations. I felt a strange, almost serene clarity as I flipped through the pages, my anger distilled into a focused, razor-sharp resolve. It was time to confront Daniel. I sent him a text that evening, short and to the point. "Me, we need to talk. Tomorrow 10 a.m. at the house." He responded within minutes, his reply just as brief. "Daniel, fine. See you then." The following morning I arrived at the house an hour early, the cool autumn air sharp against my cheeks as I unlocked the front door. The familiar creak of the old hinges echoed through the empty hallways, the faint scent of wood polish and old books filling my lungs as I stepped inside. I set up in the dining room, the thick folder of documents spread out across the polished oak table, the morning light filtering through the bay windows, casting long, slanted shadows across the pages. I wanted him to see the evidence laid out in front of him, to feel the weight of his miscalculation the moment he walked through the door. He arrived precisely at 10, his expensive shoes clicking sharply against the hardwood floor as he strode into the room, his face a carefully blank mask. "Morning," he said, his eyes flicking over the spread of documents before settling on my face, his jaw tightening slightly. "What's all this?" I leaned back in my chair, folding my arms across my chest, my eyes never leaving his. "This," I said, my voice cool and steady, "is the end of your little real estate scheme." For a moment I saw the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes, the slightest crack in his polished facade, and it sent a sharp, satisfying thrill down my spine. I reached for the top document, flipping it open to the highlighted clause in our father's will, my gaze locked on his as I pushed it across the table. "Read it," I said, my voice low but unyielding, "and then we can talk about what happens next." For the first time in years, I felt the balance of power shift, the weight of years of sacrifice and silent suffering lifting from my shoulders as I watched him pick up the paper, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the lines of text. And as I sat there, my heart steady and my mind clear, I realized that I had finally taken back control of my own story. Daniel's eyes scanned the highlighted clause, his jaw tightening with each line. I watched the slow realization dawn on his face, the way his shoulders tensed as the truth sank in. He had walked into this room confident, ready to dismiss me as the passive sibling, the one too burdened by duty to ever push back. But now he was beginning to understand just how deeply he had miscalculated. "Unanimous consent," he muttered, his voice tight. He looked up, his eyes sharp and unblinking. "This can't be right. There's no way Dad would have done this without telling me." I allowed myself a small, satisfied smile, leaning back in my chair as I folded my arms across my chest. "He didn't tell you because he trusted me to protect this house, to protect his legacy. You may have been the golden child, Daniel, but I was the one he relied on when it truly mattered." Daniel's lips pressed into a thin line, his hand tightening around the edge of the document, as if he could somehow squeeze the inconvenient truth out of it. For a long moment, neither of us spoke, the only sound, the slow, rhythmic ticking of the old grandfather clock in the corner of the room. Finally, he tossed the paper back onto the table, his jaw clenched, eyes hard. "All right, so what's your plan? You going to hold this over my head forever? Make me beg for your permission every time I want to make a move?" I met his glare with a steady, unflinching gaze. "I'm not trying to punish you, Daniel. I'm trying to protect what's left of our family. This house isn't just a piece of real estate. It's our history, our father's legacy. And I'm not going to let you turn it into another line item on your financial spreadsheet." His nostrils flared, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. "You think you're better than me, don't you? Just because you stuck around, played the good son, sacrificed your life for this crumbling old house. You have no idea what real pressure is, Alex. You have no idea what it's like to carry the expectations of an entire family on your shoulders." I felt a cold, bitter laugh bubble up in my chest, my pulse quickening as years of suppressed frustration surged to the surface. Pressure. You think you're the only one who's felt pressure. I've been holding this family together for years, Daniel. While you were off chasing your career, building your image, I was the one making sure Dad got to his appointments, paying the bills, keeping this place from falling apart. He opened his mouth to respond, but I cut him off. My voice rising, the words spilling out faster now, sharper like the snap of a whip. And you know what the worst part is? I never asked for this. I never wanted to be the one carrying all this weight, sacrificing my time, my peace of mind, my future. But I did it because I thought, foolishly apparently, that family meant something, that it came with certain responsibilities, certain obligations. For a moment, Daniel's confident mask cracked his eyes, flickering with something that might have been guilt or perhaps just irritation at having his carefully constructed narrative shattered. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to regain control, my hands shaking slightly as I leaned forward, my gaze locked on his. I'm not your doormat, Daniel. I'm not the backup plan you turn to when things get tough. I'm not the silent, obedient brother who just nods and goes along with whatever scheme you've cooked up this time. He hesitated, his eyes narrowing as he tried to gauge just how serious I was, just how far I was willing to push this. For the first time in years, I felt the balance of power shift, the weight of my anger and frustration finally tipping the scales in my favor. So here's what's going to happen. I continued, my voice cold, each word sharp and deliberate. You're going to back off. You're going to stop pushing this sail stop, trying to liquidate the only piece of our family's history that still means something. And if you even think about going behind my back again, I'll make sure the rest of the family knows exactly what you've been up to. Every shady deal, every whispered promise to potential buyers, every lie you've told to cover your tracks. His eyes widened, the colour draining from his face as the full weight of my threat hit him. For the first time in our lives, he looked genuinely afraid, the carefully crafted mask of confidence slipping away to reveal the fragile, self-interested man beneath. You wouldn't, he whispered, his voice unsteady, his hands trembling slightly as he reached for the edge of the table, his knuckles white against the polished wood. I leaned in, my eyes never leaving his, my voice dropping to a low, dangerous whisper. Try me. For a long moment, we simply stared at each other, the unspoken years of resentment and betrayal hanging thick in the air between us, the only sound, the slow, steady ticking of the grandfather clock behind me. Finally, he straightened his jaw, tightening as he forced a brittle, bitter smile onto his face. Fine, he said, his voice strained, the words grinding out between clenched teeth. Have it your way. But don't come crying to me when this place becomes a financial sinkhole, when you're drowning in debt trying to keep it afloat. I felt a slow, satisfied smile spread across my lips, the cold, sharp edges of my anger settling into something harder, more enduring. I'll take my chances, I said, leaning back in my chair, folding my arms across my chest as I watched him turn on his heel and storm out of the room, the doors slamming shut behind him with a sharp, echoing crack. For a long moment, I simply sat there, my heart still pounding my hands, still trembling slightly with the aftershocks of our confrontation. I felt a strange, heady mixture of relief and exhaustion, the adrenaline slowly draining from my system as the reality of what I had just done settled over me. I had stood up to him. I had taken control of my own story, reclaimed my own voice, and drawn a line in the sand that he would not cross again. And as I sat there, the morning light filtering through the bay windows, casting long, slanted shadows across the polished oak table, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. I rose slowly, gathering the scattered documents into a neat pile, my movements calm, deliberate, my heart finally steady. I had weathered the storm, stood my ground, and reclaimed my place in this family. Not as the forgotten silent sibling, but as the one who had the strength to walk away from the expectations that had shackled me for so long. As I reached the front door, the old hinges creaking softly as I stepped out into the cool, crisp morning air, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders, a long, shuddering breath escaping my lungs as I closed the door behind me, the sharp click echoing in the quiet hallway. For the first time in years, I felt free. Story 2. When I got to the airport for our family trip, no one was there. Not my parents, not my sister, not even the kids. I thought I had the wrong terminal, maybe a delay. I pulled out my phone. There it was a single message in our family group chat from my mum. This trip is for real family only. Then my sister added, "Take care of the kids and Max. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Don't post anything, please." I just stood there in front of the Hawaiian Airlines counter, gripping a bag of gifts I had bought for my niece and nephew. My chest tightened, my ears rang. They'd left without me. But that wasn't even the worst part. My name's Rachel Nguyen. I'm 36, single, and work in biotech research in San Diego. I love what I do. My weeks are filled with lab work and data analysis. My weekends, I spend them with my niece, Ava, 7, and nephew, Lucas, 9. Baking, stargazing, piano practice, you name it. I show up. Their mum, my sister Tiffany, calls herself a content strategist, which basically means she's on Instagram 24/7. Her husband Brian is glued to his laptop and answers everything with, "I'm in a meeting." Their lives are curated, everything's a brand, their kids' props. But to me, they're just Ava and Lucas, smart, kind kids who deserve better. Every month I chip in quietly $400 for their tutoring, school supplies, ballet lessons. Tiffany knows, she just never says thank you, my parents. They pretend I don't exist unless they need someone to babysit or fix their Wi-Fi. Still, I never minded. Until that day, the plan was Hawaii. Again, it's tradition. Every summer since Ava was 3, we've built sandcastles on Oahu. Last week, Lucas called me after school excited. "Auntie Rach, we're going to look for crabs again, right? And you're making your coconut mochi." I told him wouldn't miss it. I woke up that morning at 4 a.m. too excited to sleep. Double-checked my suitcase. Next to it, Ava's new pink ballet slippers and Lucas's mini telescope. He's obsessed with astronomy. I even baked banana bread for the plane ride. I arrived 30 minutes early, sat at the cafe by the check-in counter, sipping a lavender latte. Around me, families were buzzing, dragging suitcases, and toddlers snapping selfies in leis. I smiled, imagining our photos. 9:15, no texts, no calls. 9:25, I dialed my mum, voicemail. Then Tiffany, then Dad. Nothing. I refreshed Instagram. Tiffany had posted nothing that morning strange. She usually documents her oat milk lattes like breaking news. Then my phone buzzed. New post. Location tagged Royal Hawaiian Resort. They were already there. My parents' sister Brian and the kids. Sun hats, Gucci shades, cocktail glasses, ocean backdrop. A photo-perfect family portrait. And me nowhere. The caption, I blinked. Then a new message in the family chat. "Rachel, this trip was meant for core family. I hope you understand. You're single, no kids. It's not the same." Tiffany chimed in again. "Watch Ava and Lucas. Fridge is stocked. Don't forget Max's dog meds." Max is their French bulldog, by the way. I wasn't even human to them. I was the nanny/dog sitter. The world around me blurred. I was standing in a sea of excited travellers, and I'd just been abandoned like forgotten luggage. I didn't cry, I didn't rage, I just booked a return Uber and told the driver home. That night I unlocked Tiffany's house with the spare key. Maria, the housekeeper, looked startled. "Miss Rachel, I didn't expect." "It's okay," I told her. "I've got it from here. Go enjoy your weekend." She left quickly, almost too quickly. Then I heard the sound of little feet. Ava ran into the room, followed by Lucas. "Auntie," she shouted, "why didn't you come with us?" "I was supposed to," I said gently. "They didn't tell you." Lucas looked down. "They said you were too busy." I sat down on the couch and opened my arms. They crawled in like they'd been waiting their whole lives to belong somewhere. That night, while they slept in their matching Pokemon pajamas, I stood in the hallway and made a decision. They might have left me out of the vacation, but they weren't going to leave these kids behind emotionally. And I wasn't going to let this slide. I started small. First structure, breakfast at 7:30, oatmeal with blueberries, piano for Ava, astronomy for Lucas. I reworked my work-from-home schedule, arranged for remote meetings, and moved into their guest room. Tiffany's fridge was stocked with almond milk and 10 different flavours of sparkling water, but no real meals. I made chicken noodle soup from scratch. I taught Ava how to fold dumplings. Lucas learned how to use a microscope from my lab kit. By day 4, they stopped asking for their parents. That's when I started recording. Nothing invasive, just voice memos of bedtime confessions. I don't like it when Mommy takes pictures but doesn't talk to me. Daddy forgot my science fair again. I saved their drawings, scanned their homework, filmed Ava dancing in the living room while Max barked in the background. I didn't post a thing, but I documented everything. I wasn't planning a war, I was building a case. Meanwhile, Tiffany's feed showed a perfect family vacation. Photos of sunsets, smoothies, and poolside poses. Ava and Lucas were in the background, sometimes looking distracted or tired. But filtered through Tiffany's lens, it looked like paradise. 2 weeks passed, and then came the gate. San Diego International. I was holding both kids' hands as we stood by the arrival screen. Hawaiian Airlines Flight 227, ETA 3:15 p.m. They came through in a cluster of designer bags and TSA-weary smugness. Tiffany saw the kids and lunged forward. "Babies, Mommy missed you." But they didn't run to her. They stayed behind me, gripping tighter. "What's wrong?" she asked, pout already forming. "Come give Mommy hugs." Lucas stepped forward. His voice was steady. "I want to stay with Auntie Rachel." Ava whispered, "Me too." My mom gasped. My dad looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. Then I spoke. "Let's talk about what real family looks like, shall we?" And I pulled out my phone. I held the phone out like it was just a casual weather app. But it wasn't the weather. It was Ava's voice recorded 2 nights before. "Why doesn't Mom clap when I dance? Auntie always claps." Then Lucas another recording. I asked Dad to come to my science fair. He said he had meetings, but he posted a story from the golf course. I didn't say a word, just let it play. They stood there at the airport, stunned. My mum blinked hard behind her oversized sunglasses. My dad scratched the back of his neck like he was searching for an escape hatch. Tiffany's jaw clenched. The kids stood beside me, holding my hands like lifelines. Brian finally spoke. "Rachel, this is not appropriate. Let's go home and—" "No," I cut in calmly. "We're going to have this conversation now, in public. Because apparently that's the only time anyone listens." I pulled up a side-by-side comparison. On the left, Tiffany's Instagram Ava and Lucas posed, filtered, disconnected. On the right, my photos. Ava beaming while baking brownies. Lucas pointing out constellations from our rooftop. Then the essays. Lucas's school assignment. "My favourite person is Auntie Rachel because she shows up." Ava's, "I feel safe with her." I saw Tiffany's face crumble right as I said it. "You left me behind," I told them. "Fine. But you left them too, and they noticed." My mum tried to say something about how hard parenting is, but I held up my hand. "No more excuses," I said. "You wanted me to be the helper in the background. Quiet, useful, invisible. But here's the thing, helpers see everything. And now the kids do too. There were people watching now. You could feel the air shift. Some had their phones out. Some had stopped mid-step. But none of that mattered anymore. The only ones I cared about were standing beside me, silently pleading with their eyes. Don't let them gaslight this away. So I didn't. That night back at Tiffany's house, things were quiet, real quiet. Nobody argued, nobody defended anything. Just silence. Lucas sat beside me while I flipped through a manila folder I had pulled together weeks earlier. Ava was drawing a volcano in her sketchbook. My plan hadn't started as revenge, not really. It was survival. Because when people treat you like a spare part, you either accept it or you build something new. So that's what I did. Over the past 2 years, I had been quietly meeting with an attorney. Not for drama, just in case. I kept every receipt, every tuition payment, every contribution I made to those kids' lives. My name wasn't on their birth certificates, but I sure as hell showed up more than the people who were. I wasn't asking for full custody. I wasn't trying to be their new mum. But I was filing for something called legal guardianship, specifically partial custody on weekends and educational decision-making rights. Why? Because when your sister hands you her children like it's convenient babysitting, then tells you not to ruin her aesthetic. You learn quickly love isn't always loud. Sometimes it's legal. The hearing wasn't dramatic. Tiffany cried in the courtroom, claimed I was trying to steal her family. My mum backed her up, dabbing tears like it was a church skit. My dad didn't speak typical. But the judge read the affidavits. Teachers, counsellors, the paediatrician. They all said the same thing. Rachel Nguyen is the children's primary emotional support system. And then the judge asked a simple question. Ava, who helps you with your homework? Auntie. Lucas, who packed your lunches when your parents were gone? Auntie Rachel. The ruling shared custody. I got weekends plus legal authority over their education and healthcare decisions. Tiffany got a reality check. Brian didn't even show up for the second hearing. Life didn't magically turn into a movie after that. It was messy. Sometimes the kids cried at drop-off. Sometimes I cried after they left. But we found our rhythm. On Saturdays, we made pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. Lucas kept a journal of stars we tracked with his telescope. Ava and I choreographed little dance numbers in the living room, bad ones. She said we were cringe, but in a good way. We had rituals, not for content, not for clout, just for us. The online backlash came fast. Tiffany's followers noticed the change. No more kid content. Her engagement tanked. One of her captions read, "Taking a break from sharing for family reasons. Please be kind." Translation, I lost control of the narrative. My mum stopped going to her bridge club after the story made local news. A journalist had picked it up from someone filming at the airport. Headline, Woman left behind by family wins. Custody of abandoned niece and nephew. It went viral. Tiffany hated that I didn't respond publicly, but I didn't need to. I was busy making grilled cheese while Lucas read me facts about the moon. Months passed. Things settled. Tiffany stopped trying to pretend everything was normal. She even called me once genuinely. I didn't know they felt that way, she said. They didn't just feel it, I replied. They lived it. She asked if she could come over the next time I had the kids. I hesitated, then said only if you leave your phone in the car. She agreed. We sat on the floor and built Lego volcanoes while Ava explained tectonic plates like a mini professor. Lucas gave Tiffany a hug before bedtime, and I could see her eyes welling up. For the first time in years, she looked like a mom, and that mattered more than any win. The kids started a new tradition after that. Every Sunday night before I dropped them off, they'd write down one real family moment from the week. Just one. Week 1. Auntie Rachel let me fall asleep on the couch and didn't move me. Week 3. Daddy made grilled cheese and didn't burn it. Week 7. Mom asked me how I felt, and she really listened. We weren't perfect, but we were building something, honest, steady. And when you've been erased long enough, that kind of truth feels like rebellion, like justice, like home. It's been almost a year since the airport. A year since my name got deleted from a boarding pass and replaced with a guilt trip. And now it's Sunday morning. Church just let out, and we're all gathered in the courtyard letting the sun warm our skin while the kids run circles around the tables. Ava's twirling in her new ballet outfit. She grabs Tiffany's hand and says, "You're coming to my recital next week, right?" Tiffany kneels beside her, adjusts her hair ribbon and says, "I'll be there, baby." And this time, I'm leaving my phone in the car. I look at her and for once I don't feel the need to double-check her words. Because she's been showing up lately, quietly, without hashtags. Things changed. Not all at once, not magically, but slowly, like spring thaw. After the courtroom dust settled, my parents started coming around too. Less performative, more present. My dad's not Mr. Warmth, but he tries now. Helps Lucas with his science fair models. Buys actual books instead of just sending Amazon gift cards. My mom, she still loves a matching outfit and fancy table setting, but now she listens when Ava talks about her favourite music and doesn't correct her posture in every sentence. She even told me last month, "I wish I had seen things earlier. You've done more than we ever gave you credit for." And that was enough. We started holding family meetings once a month. Nothing dramatic. Just Sunday lunch, everyone around the same table. No phones, no filters. We talk about school summer plans, homework, who's going to ballet, who's doing pickup that week. We vote on where to go for family trips. Lucas wants to see volcanoes. Ava wants to try shaved ice from the real place, not the mall. And me, I just want everyone to show up without pretending. We did go back to Hawaii, by the way. But this time, nobody was left behind. I still packed banana bread and Ava's ballet shoes. But Tiffany brought board games. My mum brought storybooks. And Brian, yes, even Brian closed his laptop and let Lucas drag him across the sand to look for hermit crabs. No one posted a single photo online, not one. We just lived the moment, and for the first time it felt like that was enough. Back home I keep things simple. My apartment's still mine, still quiet. But on weekends it fills with laughter and burnt toast and the clatter of Ava's tap shoes on tile. They call it Auntie's Weekend Home. I didn't ask for that, but they named it themselves. And you know what? It fits. A few weeks ago, Lucas handed me something after dinner. A crumpled sheet of paper from school. It was an essay titled My Real Family. He wrote, "Family isn't just who you're born with. It's who shows up when your tooth falls out. It's who claps when you're scared to perform. It's who remembers your favourite colour without asking." Then at the bottom, "Thank you, Auntie Rachel, for showing me what family really means." I read it once, then again. And then I cried. Not the heavy kind, the quiet kind, the kind that feels like release, like healing, like everything that once hurt finally got turned inside out and softened. So yeah, they didn't invite me on that trip last year. They said I wasn't real family. But now they don't take a step without checking who's bringing the apple pie or picking up Ava's dance shoes. Now they know I don't need to share their last name to belong. I don't need a ring or a child of my own to matter. I just had to stop asking for a seat at their table and build one where the kids could sit, laugh and be seen. If you're reading this and you've been pushed out, erased, overlooked, don't wait for them to invite you back. Make your own way, love the people who show up, and let the rest catch up if they can. Because real family, it's not about blood. It's about consistency. It's about presence. It's about choosing love again and again, even when they don't deserve it, until maybe one day they do. And if they never get there, you'll be just fine. Because you already found your people, and that my friend is enough. Story 3, you ever get hit with something so absurd that your brain just short circuits? That was me, sitting in my apartment scrolling through Facebook when I saw the post. So excited for Mum and Dad's housewarming party this weekend. Couldn't be happier for them and their beautiful new place. The photo my parents standing in front of a suburban ranch home with a welcome home banner. The caption didn't tag me, which would be fine if I weren't the one who bought them the damn house. Let me back up. My name's Eliza. I'm 29 now, but this story starts decades ago, back when I was a kid who was never really meant to exist. I was the second daughter in a family that only ever had room for one. My older sister Camille was the golden child from birth, talented, bubbly, perfect SAT scores figure, skating trophies, AP classes, you name it. Me, I was the surprise baby, as my mum put it once at a family BBQ, loud enough for everyone to hear. I remember standing there, plate of potato salad in hand, while she laughed and said, "We didn't plan for her, but here she is." No one really responded, just awkward chuckles and silence. That was my role background noise in my own home. Growing up, Camille got piano lessons, summer camps and constant praise. I got a "you should be more like your sister." When I asked for help with homework, Mum would say she was tired. Dad would grunt from behind the newspaper. Camille never made time. She was busy being brilliant. But there was one place where I wasn't invisible, Grandma and Grandpa's house. They lived 10 minutes away and basically raised me. They were the ones who packed my lunches, took me to doctor's appointments, came to every school play. "Sweetheart, Grandpa used to say you don't need to shine brighter than anyone. You already light up our world." It's amazing what one sentence can do for a kid starving for recognition. By the time Camille left for college, I thought maybe my parents would start to see me. Instead, I inherited her chores. Dishes, laundry, grocery runs, even cooking. "You live here rent-free," my dad would say, "so pull your weight." By 16, I was basically their unpaid housekeeper. I'd come home from school, cook dinner, clean the house and do homework while they watched TV. They didn't ask how my day went. They didn't know what classes I was taking. Camille came home during the holidays and was treated like royalty. And me, oh, Eliza, my mum would say, can you take Camille's bag to her room? I did. Then I closed the door, stood there and let myself feel nothing. Because if you start crying in that house, you'll never stop. I worked hard in school, got good grades, and when I applied to colleges, I kept my expectations low. Still, I got accepted to 2 decent state schools and 1 private university. I brought the letters to the dinner table one night. Mom didn't look up. We don't have money for college. But we used most of our savings for Camille's wedding, Dad said between bites. You can get loans. Camille's wedding had been an entire spectacle. Designer dress, vineyard venue, a live band. They even flew in her college friends from out of state. And now I was being told to take on student debt because I wasn't a good investment. Their words, not mine. So I did the only thing I could. I called Grandma. She didn't say anything at first, just listened. Then she said, come home. That night I moved in with them. I packed a single duffel bag, left a note, didn't even say goodbye. They didn't call. Grandpa opened a folder when I arrived. Inside were bank statements and a letter. We've been saving for you since the day you were born, he said. I burst into tears. I don't remember what I said, only how it felt to be seen for the first time. They helped me enroll, get settled and start fresh. I majored in finance, and somewhere along the way I realized I had a real talent for it. Numbers made sense, people didn't. By 26, I was a financial analyst at a boutique firm. 2 promotions deep and on track for partner. Camille, meanwhile, was struggling. Her husband bounced between jobs. She freelanced in marketing, which meant posting affiliate links on Instagram and selling MLM supplements when rent was due. She and her husband moved back in with my parents, into my old room. Oh, the irony. Meanwhile, I bought a small condo. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. And I stayed close to Grandma and Grandpa. They were aging slower now. I did their grocery runs, managed their prescriptions, and made sure their bills were paid. They were the only family I still claimed. When Grandpa passed, suddenly it wrecked me. But I held it together, for Grandma. Then 2 months later, she was gone too. They were buried side by side like they'd always wanted. At the funeral, I saw my parents for the first time in 3 years. Camille didn't even say hello. My mum approached me, her voice soft. You shouldn't have to handle the arrangements alone. I wanted to say you left me to handle everything alone since I was born. But I didn't. We got through the service, then came the will. Turns out Grandma and Grandpa had one last gift for me. I don't know what stunned me more, the party itself, or the way they acted like I didn't exist. Camille's post had been up for hours before I saw it. Photos of decorations going up, folded napkins, a string quartet, fancy catering trays, dozens of people in the comments all saying they couldn't wait to celebrate this new chapter, and not one of them knew the house they were throwing a party in wasn't theirs. I called my mom, kept it casual. Hey, just checking, did you ever set a date for that housewarming party? There was a pause. Then she said, not yet, sweetie, still trying to get the timing right. She was lying, and she didn't even hesitate. I let her speak, I didn't challenge her, just listened as she lied. That Saturday I drove to the neighbourhood early, parked 2 blocks away, changed from my usual jeans into a black dress and flats. Nothing flashy, just enough to feel steady on my feet. I walked past cars lining the street, guests laughing on the porch, classical music floating through the open windows. I waited until the sun had dipped low and the garden lights clicked on. Then I walked up the driveway. The front door unlocked. Of course it was, they weren't expecting me. I stepped into the entryway and paused. My mom's voice rang from the living room. We're just so grateful. After everything, it finally feels like we have the home we deserve. Polite laughter, clinking glasses. Then Camille chimed in louder. And let's not forget who really made this possible, Mom and Dad. They sacrificed so much to give us this life. Us. She said us. I stepped forward. And then I heard it. My mother's voice again, calm and clear. Eliza. She didn't help with anything. She's always been too busy with her job. You know how career girls are. My father laughed. She doesn't understand family. Never really did. That's when I spoke. You're right about one thing. The room went dead quiet. I don't understand how people can lie with that much ease. They turned. My mom's mouth opened like she was about to greet a ghost. My dad stood still like I might disappear if he blinked fast enough. Camille's wine glass shook in her hand. I walked to the centre of the room, pulled a folder from my bag, opened it, held up the title deed. This house, the one you're standing in, the one you're celebrating, it belongs to me. A whisper rolled through the guests like wind through dry grass. My mum stepped forward, eyes darting around the room. Eliza, this isn't the time. I didn't choose the time. You did. When you invited the whole family and left out the one person who paid for the roof over your head. My dad's jaw clenched. We're your parents? And yet I said you've treated me like a stranger my whole life. Camille finally spoke. Come on, you know they were going to surprise you with a thank you later. Were they? Because what I heard was a toast to themselves. I looked around the room. Most people wouldn't meet my eyes. A few did a cousin and aunt, their faces full of that awkward sympathy people wear when they realise they've been part of something ugly. I was going to give this house to them. That was the plan. The deed was ready to be transferred tonight. All they had to do was invite me in, not as a guest, as their daughter. No one moved. So I turned to the guests and said, "Party's over, please leave." They left. Some fast, some slow. My uncle patted my shoulder on the way out. Someone whispered, "Good for you." Camille tried to follow me to the door. "You didn't have to do this publicly." "No," I said, "but you made this public the minute you posted it." Later, alone in the kitchen, I sat on the counter and stared at the ceiling. Quiet, finally. And then the banging started. My mom outside pounding on the locked front door. "Eliza, open up." "No." "We have nowhere to go?" "That's not true," I said through the door. "You just can't stay here anymore." "We're your family." "You were never a family to me?" They left. I stayed the night just to make sure. The next morning I called a locksmith, changed all the locks, set up security cameras, put the house up for sale the next week. They tried calling, I blocked them. Emails came next, then letters. Camille even left a voicemail crying, saying she didn't know what Mum and Dad had said, that it wasn't fair to take it all back. She was right. But fairness left a long time ago. The day they looked at their second daughter and saw free labour, it sold fast. 3 weeks later, the money hit my account. I bought a smaller place with a garden. A place with quiet floors and warm light. One where no one would erase my name from the mailbox. Sometimes when the breeze is just right, I sit on the porch and think about how easy it would have been, how simple, if they had just told the truth. Not a grand speech, not some award ceremony. Just an honest thank you. An invite. A moment of kindness. But they couldn't give that. So I stopped giving too. The house they'd lived in for 40 years, the one that had felt like my only real home, was now legally mine, and $100,000 in savings. Camille got nothing. My parents, they'd already received $150,000 from them years ago, as a loan. That was written in the will too. A month later my mum called. Not to apologise, to ask if I'd help them out. Turns out they'd sold their home to help Camille and were now renting. Their finances were a mess. Surprise, surprise. And get this, they wanted to downsize into something cosy. Could I help them find a place? I should have said no, but I didn't. Because against my better judgment, I wanted to believe they'd changed. So I did the legwork, found a clean, affordable ranch house in a safe neighbourhood, handled the paperwork, put up the down payment, all in my name. They were grateful, at first. And I told them we'd do a proper housewarming when things settled. They nodded, promised to keep me in the loop. Then I saw Camille's post. After I sold the house, I didn't look back. Not out of spite, just stillness. For once, I didn't feel like I owed anyone an explanation. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel the need to justify anything. And that feeling, it was new, it was freedom. I used part of the sale to pay off my student loans. I took another chunk and invested it. Then I bought a quiet little bungalow an hour outside the city. 1 story, lots of sunlight, a tiny garden with room for herbs and tomatoes. Not flashy, but real. And real was enough. Camille kept trying. Voicemails every few weeks. Some long, some angry, some with long pauses before hanging up. You didn't have to humiliate them. I know they weren't perfect, but they're still Mum and Dad. You've changed. That last one always made me pause, because I had changed. Or maybe I'd just finally stepped out of the role they wrote for me and remembered I could write my own. A year passed. I didn't go to family gatherings, didn't send cards, but I kept hearing things through the grapevine. Camille and her husband moved into a 2-bedroom apartment above a laundromat. My parents used the remainder of their retirement to help them out again. No one reached out with apologies, just requests. Money, help, just for the kids. But I didn't respond. Not because I was cruel, because I was done. Then one day an envelope showed up at my door. No return address. Inside was a handwritten note from my dad. Eliza, I know I don't deserve your time. I know what I said about the house hurt you. You were right. We used you. And when you stopped letting us, we didn't know what to do. Your grandparents saw something in you that we ignored, and we paid for that. I'm sorry. Dad, it wasn't a grand gesture. It didn't fix everything. But it was honest. And for the first time, I believed it. I didn't reply right away. I sat with it for weeks, read it twice, then left it in the drawer. I didn't need closure like I used to, didn't need them to validate me, but it meant something seeing it written down. A few months later, I visited their apartment. It wasn't planned. I was in the neighbourhood. I had some clothes in the trunk I was donating anyway. I knocked. My mum answered. Her face froze. Then she stepped aside. Do you want tea? She asked. No, I said. I just came to say something. She waited. I'm doing okay. Better than okay. She nodded. That's good. I'm not angry anymore, I said, but I'm still not coming back. Her mouth opened, then closed. She didn't argue. I understand. And somehow that was enough. I don't keep their pictures on my walls. I don't send birthday cards. But I don't carry the weight of them anymore either. Instead, I built something new. On Sundays, I volunteer at a community centre, help young women apply for college, show them how to manage money, build credit, write resumes. I tell them what no one told me. I plant things too. Tomatoes, basil, little lemon trees in pots. And every time something blooms, I think this is mine, this life, this home, this peace. Not because someone gave it to me, but because I stopped waiting. One day I hope to have a daughter, and when she asks where she came from, I'll tell her the truth. That once upon a time, a girl was born into a home that never saw her. And instead of shrinking to fit it, she grew beyond it. That she learned to stand on her own with no applause, no parade, just quiet purpose. And that's how she found her way. They didn't invite me to the housewarming, so I built a home where I was always welcome. They erased me from the picture, so I painted my own. And this time I made sure no one could write me out.